Safety, there's not a ton of safety concerns with this equipment and the configuration it's in. The only real safety concerns we have are live voltage behind our panels and a very well protected hand crushing hazard underneath that shield. The way this machine works is it creates a magnetic field by transmitting along a coil in the center of the box. There are 2 receive coils next to it. The machine is designed to know what the transmit signal is and identify differences in that signal. So at its core, this machine is a radio that's receiving its own signal and listening for what's changed. All right? So when a product goes through the machine, anything that moves through a magnetic field affects the properties of that field. All right? So it affects it in 2 primary ways, amplitude and phase. All right, and you're going to see how we're going to adjust to look for those 2 things when we get to operation. But basically what that means is it can make the field expand, or it can shift the waveform over based on what the product does. All right, so that's a fundamental theory of operation. Is it's a radio and it's looking for changes in its return signal. As operators, your job is going to be to set up products on this machine where this doesn't set off the machine, but metal contaminants will.
So this is strictly a metal detector, right?
Correct. Okay. It's not like those Loma X-rays. Right. Those things can see all manner of stuff, right? Yeah. But this is just for metal. And this can do some things that your X-ray can't do.
So what's the 3 type of metals that it picks up? Is it non-ferrous?
So it picks up all kinds of metals.
Okay.
The 3 tests are ferrous metals. Yeah. So those are metals that are high in iron, so magnetic things. Non-ferrous metals, things like brass and like copper and stuff. And then stainless steels of varying levels of purity from 4 to 16. But it can also see other types of metal, like aluminum, which is something your X-rays actually can't see. An X-ray machine can't see aluminum because aluminum is not very dense. X-rays function on density, but anything that will increase the size or shift the phase of the magnetic field, so anything that conducts electricity can be seen by the metal detector. All right. In practice, that's what it's just metal. So, operation. There's 2 logins that you guys are going to use to interact with this machine. All right. The first one is the operator login. And you're going to see this menu, not very big. The operator menu allows you to select a product, and that is all. You cannot make any changes to the product. You cannot make any changes to system settings. This is the menu that you want people you only trust to choose what products running through the machine. So let's say, for example, y'all switch to like M&Ms in your Chips Ahoy or something. That's probably going to interact differently with the machine. It's probably going to need its own product setup. You can't do that as an operator. You would only be able to select Chips Ahoy M&M. All right, and you do that just by clicking on it, and you click confirm selection. Right. So we click confirm selection, and now if we go over to here, you'll see that we're, instead of being on Chips Ahoy, we are on product 1. Right. Same thing goes. Your basic operator can just go in here and reselect Chips Ahoy. That is the simplest way of doing it. And I have that back here.
Absolutely.
All right, so that is the operator level. You'll notice you do not have very much control at the operator level. So let's go 1 level up from operator, which is where your trusted operators are going to be making changes to the product settings. That is the engineering access level, and that is all 3s. Operator all 1, engineer all 3.
You say it. I didn't record it, but you said it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So the operator is all 1s, and engineer is all 3s.
Okay, perfect.
You'll notice we got more menus here. All right, and these are what you're going to be doing.
Question.
To run the machine.
These menus only come up once you put the password in?
Correct. Okay. You have no access to change anything if you're not logged into something.
Okay.
And part of the reason is that you don't want operators who don't know what they're doing stuff. You don't want people just randomly moving through the plant, seeing this thing going off, and be like, oh, I'll just turn it off.
Exactly.
You don't want that. So we segment what's available to be seen by what. based on what access code that you have. All right. So we're going to go through these menus, and these are the menus that you want to know. All right. So auto setup is going to basically do its best to set up the product for you. All right. And auto setup, you're just going to follow the on-screen prompts. By the way, you're never going to touch the optimize setup button. Just don't do it. It's no good. All right. So you're going to get prompts, and then this bell will be running, and you will pass product during this time. You'll see that it has a timeout, and then oh, perfect. Thank you. And after this product setup. After you pass your product for 30 seconds, and when you're doing this, you want it to be in as close to the configuration of production as possible. So in this case, we're running basically a constant stream of like 20 lanes of cookies. Okay. If you were doing an auto setup on this it would actually be pretty difficult. You'd have to line up a whole bunch of cookies, get automation to start the belt, pass it through the machine, and then stop, grab all those cookies, put them up here. Or you can just do this during operation. You can have them run the line and then have them draw gaps in between for you to do the pass when no product is running. After you've completed that, the system will give you product settings. So we're going to back out from auto setup. We're going to go to product settings. After you've run your auto setup, you're going to have access to this screen. This screen contains 3 buttons. One of them is frequency select. All right. Because it's a radio, it operates on radio frequencies. The 2 frequencies on this machine are 300 and 800 kilohertz. All right. Generally speaking, you want to run in the highest frequency that your product can manage. There are some products that you cannot run on high frequency because they're too conductive, like chicken. All right. But a cookie, a very dry cookie, A-okay to run on high. If, for example, the cookies come through here warmer one day, like let's say the cooling tunnel's not great, it's going to start lighting off on the cookies because right now it's set up for a perfectly dry cookie, and we're going to learn how to adjust for those kind of things as we move forward. The next thing is sensitivity. All right, sensitivity. I'm actually going to bring up a little thing for you guys really quick so that you can see what I'm talking about in a more visual way. So you guys didn't buy this option, but this is a good way to visually understand what the machine is doing. So when you break an AC sine wave into 4 parts and you chart it on a graph, that's what it looks like. As the signal rises and then it falls and then it goes underneath and then it comes back, right? It's a sine wave. This red ring is sort of like your sensitivity zone. If this bell was running and we had product going through, you'd see this little blue dot moving around. If that blue dot leaves the red circle, then the machine beeps and the belt opens. All right. So with that understanding, increasing sensitivity shrinks the circle, making it easier for the blue dot to leave. Decreasing sensitivity makes it bigger, meaning the blue dot has to travel further to get out. All right. So you'll notice something else here, which is phase. Any product you put through here is going to cause movement, and the shape of that movement is dependent on something called phase shift. All right. So you don't really need to know all the engineering of it, but what it comes down to is when chicken passes through the field, it goes pretty much straight up and down. When your cookie passes through, it doesn't move much, but if it does move, it moves side to side. So you can adjust this product to make it harder for your product to set off the detector as if it was a contaminant. Sensitivity is used to find your contaminant. Phase is used to make the machine ignore your product.
Okay.
All right. So if you come in here one day, all right, and let's say we're back at 0. If you come in here one day, all right, and we're back on the screen you guys have access to, and your regular cookies are setting off the machine, your sensitivity hasn't changed. The phase of your product has changed. So what you would do is while the cookies are all running down the line and the belt is opening and closing, you just go here and jog phase up. If the amount of movement on the meter goes down, you're headed in the right direction. And you do it again. All right. If it goes down further, you're still headed in the right direction. If it gets worse, then you need to go back to where you were and half step it. So instead of moving up 10, you go up 5. And you keep doing that, ping-ponging down until you find the point on this where your product causes the least amount of movement on the meter. All right. Once you've done that, you've taught the machine that any movement on that graph in this slice at 15 degrees is good product, and we don't want the machine to go off on that. All right. So that is phase. All right. Those two things work together to ignore your product and find your samples. All right. If you get to the point where your product is not causing much movement, then you simply increase sensitivity until all of your samples are seen by the machine.
And once again, we know that it seeds this here based on this meter here, right?
Correct. So you'll notice, especially when all of these machines and belts are running, there's a lot of VFDs in here. VFDs generate radio noise. So you'll see that when all this equipment's on, this meter is just moving on its own. There doesn't have to be any product. The belt will be stopped.
Okay.
All right, when the machine is on, or when all the machinery's on, it'll get movement. That's just because there's so much radio noise in here. Mm-hmm. All right? You can't isolate for the radio noise. When you're doing your product setups, you need to do it with as much of the equipment off as possible, preferably just this belt on. So if you do need to set up a new product, you just need to say like, hey, I need just this belt for 15 minutes while I run auto setup in a low noise environment. So next you can rename your product. So this is page 2 of product setup. You can rename your product and insert a code and a batch code if your people want it. Last one is one of my favorite buttons. This is page 3 of product setup. And those blinky red lights mean that no matter what I pass through this machine, can I get it to go off? No matter what I pass through this machine, while these blinky red lights are going on, that's not going to open. All right, this turns off the reject. You should never operate in this mode, but it's useful for troubleshooting and for setting up tricky products. If they just want to run and you just like, I just need to get this product set up, you can turn the reject off for a couple minutes while you're doing it. That way it stops buckets and buckets and buckets of the product going into the bin, all right? So reject inhibit turns off the reject device. That is all of the pages in product setup. I know that was pretty quick. Do you guys have any questions about this stuff? Please feel free to ask any and all questions you have. I know I talk fast. If not, then we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah.
All right. The next thing is a really neat menu called counters. All right. Counters is a cool thing to have as an operator or as a person working in QA, because this keeps track of every time that opens. So let's say you're getting occasional rejects, but you're not quite sure how much it actually is. And supervisor's like, well, how much product are we actually losing? How many times is this thing going off? This will tell you. All right. If every shift someone comes in here and presses that reset, then at any point in time, management can come by and be like, how bad is it? And you can show them. All right. It's also useful if you're trying to figure out what's causing a problem, right? So when this belt was running earlier today, with no product, it was occasionally setting itself off. And I was like, trying to figure out how often that happened. So I reset the counters, went and had a smoke break, and came back and it had gone off 25 times. That's way too many times to be going off when nothing's happening, right? But it gives me indications of how machine health is. And it lets me know like, hey, this is bad enough that I should probably fix this. So that's counters. And I recommend that anytime you have an operator on shift you trust to log into engineering access level, have them reset at every shift. So the next thing is product management. Product management lets you...
Do you have a blank piece of paper in your back?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
So product management is where we're going to handle the products. So in product management, you can do that operator menu that I showed you. This is just that menu, but this is where you find it in the engineering access level. You can select your products. You can create copies of products. So sometimes you have a product that's real close to another one, but it's like just barely off, but this product won't work on that one, that product won't work on this one. You can copy the existing product and make the adjustments, and then you save both of them. So that way if the operator who comes in behind and accesses the screen can just click on it. All right, and it's you can click on it and press check, and it'll just copy it, and it'll be Chips Ahoy bracket 1, and then you can make your adjustments and rename in the product settings tab. All right, next up, auto cluster. Don't ever touch that button. It's not something that you guys need or should ever mess with. Auto cluster, what it does is it combines settings. It creates like a Frankenstein of a bunch of different product settings and tries to get them all to work together. Not worth messing with. But you can also create new products from this menu, and it's gonna run some processes before it allows us to do it. Yes. So we can create a new product here starting from the name. All right, so we would name our product, and then it brings us to the things we need to know about our products. It allows us to run an auto setup, see the product settings for that product we are making, and set our reject settings. We're gonna get to reject settings in a second, but that's not a button this plant will ever have to worry, or not a button this room will ever have to worry about. But that's just other menus that we've seen already, right? Yes, we're gonna import product creation. Yes. So the reason why it's doing this is because when it's setting up a new product, it defaults to low frequency and expects you to step it up if you want it to be stepped up. But because our main product is running in high, every time we leave that menu, it's got to reset itself to high frequency. So the last thing is delete product. Function's exactly the same. You select a product and you delete it. You cannot delete your active product. That's why it only shows product 1 and not Chips Ahoy here. If you want to delete a product, you have to click onto a different product in order to delete it. So that is product management button, all right? The last thing is reject settings. Now, the way this line is configured, this machine is not controlling that belt. It's not controlling the retracting arm. All that's controlled by plant automation. All right, all the automation boys and the college kids have figured that all out, and all we're doing is supplying a hey, please retract the belt signal to them. So you should never touch this. And every product you make, you should pop in here and just make sure these settings are the same, 500 and 0. All right, because that's what's required for automation to work. All right, that is the engineering access level. Those are the 2 access levels that you guys care about. All right. Anything that you guys need to do without calling me first is on these menus. All right. So normally I would have at this point I would let you guys each set up a product, but because we don't have belts and this isn't like a METTLER machine where I can just press a button to turn on the belt, we're gonna have to pass on that this time. But as long as you follow the auto setup instructions, you're probably gonna be fine. If auto setup isn't seeing these, just increase sensitivity. That's a good rule of thumb. Run your auto setup, increase sensitivity until you're safe to sit. Okay. All right. So that's
so if this.
Yeah, go ahead.
This goes through and it doesn't reject. I call electrician. He's probably gonna come out and increase the sensitivity possibly.
Well, if you're a trusted operator, then that's probably something y'all can do.
We can do it.
Okay.
So this is a menu. These menus are for trusted operators, right? Like he introduced these guys as subject matter experts for operation, right? Mm-hmm. So following that logic, this is something that you guys would probably be trusted to do. Okay. Though of course you have to consult with corporate mumbo jumbo about all that.
Okay. So like this, hypothetically speaking, say right now, let's put this in here, right?
Yeah.
I run it through, and bam, No.
Yeah,
Cookies
no.
after this.
But you know, those are
Yeah, go flat.
the cookies
Yeah.
are in the tray first.
Right. So if
Yeah.
I run a test through and it don't give me a reject,
What do you do?
if it goes through
Yeah.
here and my reject don't open up,
So if your reject doesn't open up,
Okay.
what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab your sample. All right, you're gonna put it on the next cookie going by in that same spot, but you're gonna you should always really be watching the meter when samples are going through, but if you didn't, you wanna watch this real closely.
See how high it goes.
All right, if your sample gets it to like barely almost there, just pop in here and bump up sensitivity by 10. All right, but if it's not close, then you need to do a new product setup, which is what we just walked through with the auto setup.
okay.
But like I must have passed hundreds of samples over my time here, and after they fixed the timing on the belt, I haven't missed one all day. So you're probably going to be pretty okay unless something changes dramatically.
Okay.
But that's the process. Is if you miss, you got to let whoever, because you're probably going to have some kind of process that you got to go through if there's a miss. You're probably going to have to let QA know and stuff,
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah.
They're probably going to want to hold all the product that came through at a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, what you're going to want to do is you're going to increase sensitivity until it sees your samples.
All right. So increase in sensitivity. Show me that real quick.
Product settings.
For the settings.
Sensitivity.
Okay. And when the numbers go up, that means I'm getting more sensitivity, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the number going up means it takes less signal change to cause the machine to go off. This is a double-edged sword. If you increase sensitivity too much, it will start going off on your product, even if your phase is dead nuts perfect. All right? So that's kind of where you're at. We're like, you want sensitivity to be high enough to see all your samples, but you don't want it to be so high that you begin to see product effect, too much product effect on the meter. Now, because this machine's so freaking big, it's so long, this is huge. All right, your sensitivity is going to have to be high to see samples in the middle of the belt. And while you guys are testing, you should be testing all over the belt. Like a different